But first, Sky News understands that the Prime Minister is looking at 3 dates on which to hold this year's election. He hasn't made up his mind yet, and the prospect of holding a budget on March 25 and going to an election in May is very much a live option, despite speculation to the contrary. The dates being considered are April 12, May 3 and May 10. I understand a decision has been made not to go with the last possible election date that the PM could call it, May 17. There was, as Sky News has reported, serious consideration given to calling the election today for April 5, but the PM made the decision not to proceed with that. The next option would be to call the election the day after the WA election next Saturday for April 12. This has its own difficulties. It's in school holidays and it's around the time of the Jewish holiday Passover. There is precedent for calling an election during a Jewish holiday. There was an election called by Julia Gillard on Yom Kippur, an even more revered holiday. That was on September 14, 2010. That caused even more controversy. The PM will be in WA on Saturday for the WA election, as I understand it. And even though he will be returning to Canberra and could then go to Yarralumla to call the election, my understanding is that right now there's more chance he would hold cabinet the next morning. So my bet at the moment is we are going to a budget and we are having an election in May. And I'll discuss this with Treasurer Jim Chalmers in a moment. I do know that people have been told, campaigners, staff, to be in Labor campaign HQ by the end of this week. But the prospect of a May election occurs, even though the government has announced what I understand is their biggest spending pledge of the campaign already, the $8.8 billion on Medicare bulk billing that the opposition came out and matched. The government yesterday announced a $200 million 2-year freeze on draft beer tax. This seems a bid for the male vote. And I'll be interested to hear the Treasurer's views on this shortly, because he's long opposed this kind of policy when it was suggested to him by lobby groups. And he even had the ACCC write to brewers at the end of January. Here is the letter the ACCC wrote, obtained by Sky News. It reads, "The Australian Competition and Consumer Commission is aware of the February 25 indexation of the excise duty rates for alcohol. We are writing to remind your members of their obligations under the Australian consumer law in respect of representations they make to wholesale customers or consumers about factors affecting their prices. Businesses must ensure that any representations they make about price increases or the reasons for price increases are true and accurate." Then it threatened fines of up to $50 million. Well, today there's another big announcement by the government on urgent care clinics, $644 million to open an extra 50 of them. There'll be eyes on which seats they are being established in. They are in the key swing states of New South Wales and Victoria, a lot of them. So quite a bit of spending from the government and a focus in particular on health. Opposition leader Peter Dutton, meanwhile, has proposed $3 billion to buy Australian fighter jets this morning, raising the prospect of a khaki election. More on that with Andrew Hastie in a moment. Mr Dutton's also not ruling out a tax cut promise during the election campaign. But he wants to see the books first, he says. Now, would Labor match that promise? What I can tell you is the focus of Labor's election campaign will be this. The government will run on its record, on its offer, secondly, and on risk. What they claim is the risk of electing a Dutton government.